A ski jacket that costs $6,000, more than a full ski trip to Aspen, more than a Rolex Submariner service cycle, and sometimes more than an entry-level used car. That's the paradox. Most ski jackets scream performance with neon colors and oversized logos, while this one whispers, yet costs more than almost all of them. One Balma Tec is the price of 10 premium Gore-Tex ski shells, roughly the cost of a week in Portugal before lift tickets, or the equivalent of a bespoke Italian cashmere overcoat. There's no logo, no hype campaign, and almost no celebrity tagging. So why do billionaires, tech elites, and discreet Hollywood figures keep choosing it? It is designed to move effortlessly between two worlds that almost never overlap: the mountain and the city. On the slopes, it functions as professional-grade ski equipment, fully waterproof, windproof, breathable, and insulated for real alpine conditions. Off the slopes, once the hood and powder skirt are removed, it reads like a sharply tailored luxury overcoat, quiet, matte, and refined. Unlike conventional ski jackets made from nylon or Gore-Tex that prioritize visibility and aggression, the Balma Tec prioritizes texture, touch, and restraint. The fabric doesn't shine, doesn't crinkle, and doesn't announce itself from across the resort. It's built for people who already understand performance and no longer feel the need to advertise it. That contradiction, serious technical capability hidden inside one of the most luxurious fibers on Earth, is the starting point of why this jacket exists and why its price defies conventional logic. To understand why three-layer technical cashmere even exists, you have to rewind far before ski resorts, performance shells, or membrane technology ever entered the conversation. For centuries, cashmere was prized for one reason only: comfort. It was the fabric of emperors, aristocrats, and later industrial elites precisely because it was soft, warm, lightweight, and fragile. Cashmere was never meant to fight the elements. It was meant to shield the body in controlled environments: palaces, salons, private homes, where exposure to rain, wind, and abrasion was minimal. In traditional thinking, cashmere and harsh weather were mutually exclusive ideas. That assumption held true for generations. Even as outdoor clothing evolved through wool-waxed cotton and eventually synthetic fibers, cashmere remained confined to coats, sweaters, and scarves. The fiber's short staple length and fine diameter made it exceptionally soft, but structurally vulnerable. Rain flattened it. Wind cut through it. Repeated friction damaged it. From a technical standpoint, using cashmere for extreme weather sounded irrational, if not irresponsible. That's exactly why it took Italy, rather than mass-market outdoor brands, to challenge the idea. The breakthrough came not from sportswear companies, but from Italian textile laboratories that had spent decades mastering luxury fibers. These innovators weren't trying to make cashmere tougher in the traditional sense. They were trying to protect it without destroying what made it valuable in the first place. The key insight was lamination. Instead of coating the fabric heavily or blending it with synthetics, engineers began bonding cashmere to ultra-thin technical membranes. Layers measured in microns, not millimeters. This allowed the fabric to retain its natural hand feel while gaining entirely new properties. This is where the three-layer system becomes critical. In the case of CAs, the outer layer remains genuine cashmere, selected for uniformity, density, and surface integrity. Beneath it sits a hydrophilic membrane, a highly advanced technical film designed to block water and wind while allowing moisture vapor to escape from the body. This membrane is not stitched or loosely attached. It is heat bonded, forming a permanent molecular relationship with the cashmere above it. Finally, an inner technical layer stabilizes the structure, adds durability, and allows the garment to accept fully taped seams without compromising flexibility. The result is not simply cashmere that resists water. It is a structural transformation of the fiber itself. Cashmere, which normally collapses when exposed to rain, now behaves like a performance shell. Wind no longer penetrates. Moisture beads and rolls off. Internal heat is regulated rather than trapped. Achieving this balance is incredibly difficult because any excess heat, adhesive, or pressure during lamination can permanently damage the cashmere fibers. A single mistake can ruin an entire production run. CS draws from the same rarefied material ecosystem as Loro Piana, where fiber sourcing, yarn selection, and finishing techniques are treated as intellectual property rather than industrial processes. Cashmere suitable for lamination must meet stricter criteria than cashmere used for coats or knitwear. The fibers must be strong enough to survive bonding, consistent enough to laminate evenly, and dense enough to mask the presence of the membrane beneath. Only a fraction of available cashmere qualifies, which immediately limits scale. Then comes construction. Seam sealing a cashmere garment is not comparable to seam sealing nylon. The tolerances are tighter, the failure rate is higher, and the labor cost is exponentially greater. Each seam must remain waterproof without puckering the fabric or creating visible stress lines. This is why production stays in Italy and why volumes remain low. The process cannot be rushed, automated, or outsourced without compromising the material. This is why three-layer technical cashmere matters. It represents a fundamental shift in how luxury materials are used, not as decorative elements layered on top of performance, but as the performance itself. The Balma Tec jacket exists because Italian textile engineering made something previously impossible viable. Cashmere is still delicate by nature, but turning it into a waterproof, windproof, breathable, fully seam-sealed Alpine shell requires a level of technical precision that very few brands can afford, and even fewer can execute. The price is not driven by branding or exclusivity alone. It is driven by the reality that this fabric was never supposed to do what it is now being asked to do. That refusal to be seen is exactly what makes CISA controversial. In an industry that has trained consumers to justify high prices through spectacle, runway shows, celebrity endorsements, oversized logos, and constant drops, CS removes every familiar signal people use to rationalize cost. There is no branding shortcut here. When someone sees the Balma Tec on a rack, or even on a person, there is nothing obvious to explain why it costs several $1,000s. No badge to point at, no viral moment to reference, no public narrative doing the work on the buyer's behalf. This creates friction. For many shoppers, especially those accustomed to luxury fashion as a form of communication, the jacket feels almost confrontational. It asks an uncomfortable question: if no one else can see what you paid, does the price still make sense? CISA's answer is yes, but only if your definition of value is internal rather than external. Quiet luxury, at this level, is not about minimalism as an aesthetic trend. It is about confidence in private standards. The jacket does not perform socially, it performs materially. That philosophy runs directly against the dominant logic of modern luxury. Most high-end brands rely on recognition to sustain demand. Logos reassure the buyer that others will understand the purchase. Influencer seeding ensures the product arrives pre-validated. Seasonal hype creates urgency and fear of missing out. CS removes all three, which means the product must stand on its own merits. The material must justify itself. The cut must feel right. The performance must be undeniable. There is no external story to hide behind. This is why the Balma Tec often confuses people encountering it for the first time. On the surface, it can appear restrained, even understated to the point of anonymity. But that restraint is intentional. The jacket is designed to disappear into environments where everyone is already wealthy, already well-dressed, and already informed. In those spaces, Aspen, St. Moritz, Courchevel, status is not established by visibility, but by discernment. Loudness reads as insecurity. Subtlety reads as experience. In that context, recognition shifts from public to private. The people who notice a Balma Tec are not strangers on the street. They are tailors, fabric specialists, serious skiers, and individuals who have worn enough technical gear to recognize when something feels fundamentally different. The weight distribution. The silence of the fabric when you move. The absence of bulk despite the warmth. These are signals that only register if you know what to look for. And this also reminds me of a funny story a friend of mine wants to tell you. When she gave a friend a cashmere coat as a birthday gift, she became the laughing stock of the party because everyone thought it was a coat made in India and a cheap gift. She took it back when she left and enjoyed its warmth. And you know what the result was, right? This is why CISA does not need to explain itself loudly. The brand operates on the assumption that its audience already speaks the language of materials and performance. Quiet luxury, here, is not a marketing pose. It is a filtering mechanism. It ensures that the jacket ends up on the backs of people who choose it deliberately, not aspirationally. And that, ultimately, is what makes the Balma Tec so polarizing. It does not ask to be admired, it asks to be understood. The reason the Balma Tec Cashmere ski jacket reaches a price range of roughly $3,500 to $6,500 is not rooted in branding theatrics, but in scarcity at every level of its existence. It begins with the material itself. Three-layer laminated cashmere is not a fabric that can be scaled easily or produced on demand. Only a very small percentage of raw cashmere fibers are suitable for lamination in the first place. The fibers must be strong enough to withstand bonding, consistent enough to laminate evenly, and dense enough to conceal the technical membrane without losing the natural softness that defines cashmere. Most cashmere fails this test. What remains is rare before construction even begins. Then comes the complexity of building a garment from it. Fully taped seams are standard in high-performance nylon shells, but applying that same process to cashmere is exceptionally uncommon, even in the luxury world. Seam taping requires heat and pressure, two things that can permanently damage natural fibers if applied incorrectly. Each seam must remain waterproof without warping the fabric, flattening the nap, or creating visible stress lines. The margin for error is razor thin, which means production is slow, meticulous, and expensive. A mistake doesn't just ruin a seam, it can destroy the entire jacket. On top of that foundation sits a collection of high-end components chosen not for marketing appeal, but for performance consistency. Thermore EcoDown, made from 100% recycled paint bottles, is selected because it delivers reliable warmth with minimal bulk, allowing the jacket to retain a clean, tailored silhouette rather than the puffed profile typical of insulated ski gear. YKK-AQ waterproof zippers are used because failure at a zipper is unacceptable in real Alpine conditions, and these are among the most reliable on the market. Laser-cut Alcantara trims are added not as decoration, but for durability in high-wear areas, offering abrasion resistance without disrupting the jacket's refined appearance. The inclusion of a built-in rescue reflector further signals that this is not a cosmetic ski jacket. It is engineered for real mountain use, with professional safety standards quietly embedded inside. All of this is assembled under production conditions that make mass manufacturing impossible. The jacket is made in Italy, in small batches, by specialists whose primary experience lies in sartorial outerwear rather than industrial sportswear. These are workshops accustomed to working with delicate luxury fabrics, precise tailoring, and slow construction timelines. They are not optimized for speed or volume, and they are not interchangeable with factories that produce thousands of nylon shells per day. Every decision, from cutting to bonding to finishing, is labor-intensive and resistant to automation. This is the final piece of the pricing reality. The Balma Tec is expensive because nothing about it is efficient in a mass market sense. The materials are scarce, the processes are unforgiving, the components are uncompromising, and the production scale is deliberately limited. The price is not inflated to create exclusivity. Exclusivity is the natural consequence of how difficult this jacket is to make. In practice, the Balma Tec Cashmere ski jacket shows up in very specific places, and that pattern says more about its purpose than any marketing campaign ever could. You see it in Aspen, Colorado, where wealth is concentrated but rarely broadcast, and where people expect their clothing to perform on the mountain in the morning and still look appropriate at a private dinner that evening. You see it in St. Moritz, Switzerland, a resort where understatement is the highest form of confidence and technical credibility matters more than trend visibility. You see it in Courchevel, France, where luxury ski culture has matured past flashy statements and into precision, tailoring, and material intelligence. And you see it around the Sundance Film Festival in Utah, where cold weather, constant movement, and public scrutiny demand a jacket that can handle real conditions without looking like performance gear. The people who choose this style tend to share the same logic. The tech bro, billionaires of Silicon Valley gravitate toward the Balma Tec because it solves a practical problem. They want one jacket that works for meetings, travel, and skiing without ever feeling costume-like. Although not entertainment stars, figures like Jeff Bezos and the elite at the Sun Valley Conference are among the biggest wearers of CES. Mature Hollywood figures such as Kevin Costner fit naturally into this world as well. His off-screen style is built around durability, comfort, and restraint, qualities that align perfectly with CES's philosophy. At festivals like Sundance, attendees such as Joe Jonas, Adrian Grenier, and Stephen Colbert are often styled in jackets that balance wool-based luxury with real weather protection, making the Balma Tec an ideal choice, even if it's rarely identified by name. What makes the jacket irreplaceable is how seamlessly it moves between roles. On the mountain, it is legitimate ski equipment equipped with a Resiso rescue reflector, a detachable powder skirt, and a dedicated ski pass pocket, features that matter when conditions turn serious. In the city, those same elements can be removed or hidden, instantly transforming the jacket into something closer to a refined overcoat than technical gear. There is no swish when you walk, no reflective shine under lights, and no branding to anchor it to a season or trend. The jacket doesn't announce itself, but it consistently delivers, which is why the people who wear it tend to keep wearing it, quietly, repeatedly, and without explanation. From a purely financial standpoint, the Balma Tec Cashmere ski jacket is not an investment, in the way hype-driven luxury items or limited edition collectibles are often framed. It is not designed for resale, it does not benefit from artificial scarcity cycles, and it is unlikely to appreciate on secondary markets. There are no drops to flip, no logos to inflate demand, and no speculative upside tied to seasonal buzz. If your definition of investment begins and ends with resale value, this jacket will disappoint you. Functionally and emotionally, however, the calculation changes completely. The Balma Tec makes sense if you value owning fewer things that do more. Instead of rotating between a technical ski shell, a winter parka, and a tailored coat, this jacket consolidates those roles into a single, cohesive piece. It performs on the mountain, transitions effortlessly into urban environments, and does not feel out of place in either setting. That reduction, from 3 jackets to 1, is where its real value begins to surface. Longevity is the second factor. Trend-driven ski jackets are tied to seasons, silhouettes, and visual codes that age quickly. Colors shift, fits change, and technical fabrics often look dated long before they fail structurally. The Balma Tec avoids that trap by anchoring itself in classic proportions and neutral tones, allowing the material itself to carry the visual weight. Like a tailored coat, it is designed to age quietly, becoming more familiar and more personal over time rather than obsolete. Finally, there is the emotional return that comes from materials over marketing. Wearing the Balma Tec is not about signaling to others, it is about the private satisfaction of knowing exactly what you are wearing and why it works. The softness of the cashmere, the absence of noise and shine, and the confidence that it will perform when conditions turn serious all contribute to a sense of ownership that is difficult to quantify but easy to feel. In that sense, the jacket doesn't behave like sports equipment, which is typically replaced, upgraded, and discarded. It behaves like a well-made coat, something you reach for year after year, not because it is new, but because it remains right. Another unique detail is that this jacket isn't just about fashion, it's a status symbol. So only 5 or 10 out of every 10,000 Americans would truly spring for a Balma Tec Cashmere jacket. That's a tiny group, the top 0.1%ers. That's why CES doesn't chase volume. At this level, rarity isn't manufactured, it's automatic. The jacket isn't expensive because many people want it. It's expensive because almost no one does, and that's exactly the point. What I take away from the Balma Tec is less about the jacket itself, and more about how it forces me to clarify my own standards. Before buying anything expensive, I now ask myself a simple question: am I paying for visibility, or am I paying for intelligence? Visibility is easy. It reassures you instantly because other people recognize it. Intelligence is quieter. It requires trust in materials, construction, and long-term use rather than external validation. That distinction alone eliminates a lot of unnecessary purchases. I also pay close attention to whether an item solves multiple roles or only one moment. A jacket that works for one ski trip, one season, or one aesthetic quickly becomes clutter. The Balma Tec represents the opposite approach. It replaces a technical shell, a winter coat, and a refined travel jacket with a single object that adapts as needed. Fewer items, fewer decisions, and fewer compromises. Over time, that kind of versatility creates real value, even if the upfront cost is high. Finally, I've learned to invest in materials that don't announce themselves. When a product relies on logos or spectacle, its value is tied to public taste, and public taste changes fast. Materials age differently. Cashmere that has been engineered properly, cuts that respect the body, and construction that prioritizes durability tend to grow more convincing over time, not less. That's the kind of ownership that feels stable rather than fleeting. For anyone considering a jacket like this, the advice is straightforward. If you ski seriously and hate shiny nylon, excessive padding, and loud branding, the Balma Tec makes sense. If you expect a logo to justify the price every time you look in the mirror, this jacket is not for you. And if you believe that true luxury should be felt through comfort, performance, and restraint rather than seen from across the room, then this piece delivers exactly what it promises. Now I want to hear your view. Would you choose the CES Balma Tec for its innovation and precision, Or would you rather invest in a classic like the Loro Piana Icer that represents a different kind of long-term luxury? Or perhaps a Moncler ski jacket